Welcome to Geo Week, Day 2 here in Denver, Colorado. It's 2023 and we're talking to Aaron Goldstein from UES, Geophysicist and Department Manager. So, Aaron, you guys are doing some really interesting stuff, some things off the beaten path as well. So let's get started. What's your primary focus and how did you come across Navis?
Yeah, so our primary focus really is working on subsurface information models. We use geophysics to locate underground infrastructure, survey it and model in 3D. And really the reason we came across the VLX is we want to give contextual information to our clients. Our clients use the VLX data through Ivion or through downstream E57s to do whatever they need to do with it. But the cool part about it is they can virtually explore the space, see underground models, and really change their design based off of what is actually out there in the site.
Very cool. So you mentioned context. So obviously you guys have a suite of sensors in order to capture your data that's underground. Can you talk a little bit about what that additional context provides by adding that above ground VLX data?
Yeah, so I mean, the main thing is, obviously we're deploying about 6 different geophysical techniques. All these techniques kind of combine with a surveying component. And, the main thing is like, we're looking at, features like maybe things where we have some voids, where there might be some sinking features, or there might be valves. And these are all things that we can capture in survey data. But when you kind of put that into a model by itself without a BIM model, it's kind of just pipes floating in space. And so having that contextual information through the VLX scans, really kind of helps beef that up, makes it look really nice and pretty, especially from a design perspective.
Yeah. Very cool. So you mentioned surveying, and obviously, if we can't see these things underground, I'm curious how you tie these things together. How do what level of certainty do you have? If you could just break down what that process looks like, that would be great.
Yeah, great question. So one of the major things is we often get asked, what is the accuracy on our models, right? So typically it kind of depends on each technique, but we're plus or minus about 2 inches off the top of the pipe horizontally and about 6 inches off the top of the pipe vertically. Obviously, when we collect data, this is all being pulled from primary control and just typical survey standards, right? And so when we use the VLX, we're obviously tapping into that control that we've already established out on site. So that way, when we export all of our VLX data and we pull in our 3D models for the underground infrastructure, everything lines up nice and neatly, and we can model from there and push it out to the client.
Very cool. So for the uninitiated, could you talk a little bit about what sort of techniques you're using to get that data from underground?
Yeah, so most people are most familiar with radio frequency and ground penetrating radar or GPR, but there's about 3 or 4 other techniques, more classically geophysically related, time domain and frequency domain, electromagnetics, and there's acoustics and sonic methods as well. So all these come together, obviously integrated with the survey component. And so we're able to locate about 80 to 90% of underground infrastructure. That way, maybe we have to do a little bit of validation through hydrovac or potholing to get you to 100%. But this kind of gives you a better picture of what's going out on your site.
Very cool. So obviously you've got all sorts of data types, wide variety. You mentioned that some of your customers are using Ivion. Could you describe a little bit about what sort of, obviously you're providing some services way beyond what we're doing with Ivion, but how are your customers using that to sort of get more out of what you're providing?
Yeah, so I think the best part is really our customers using Ivion. With our Ivion instance, that allows our customers to virtually visit their site. And what we're seeing quite often is whether it's through the E57 file that they download or through actually the Ivion instance itself, they're making measurements, they're using that data to produce BIM models out of, if they haven't already done so. It also helps that we're capturing all this data after the end of the utility investigation. So not only are they getting a 3D model, but they're also getting a quasi 2D model just through the imagery and through the laser scan itself. Yeah.
Very cool. So honestly, we could talk all day, but I'm going to have to cut this off at some point. But before we do, I'd love to hear, is there anything else that you'd want to share about, the VLX, its workflow, Ivion in general, that you just sort of said this was a slam dunk?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the best thing about the VLX is, I mean, obviously the return on investment is insane. I mean, I can go on and on and on about the VLX system or how great Navis has been for us. But on a productivity level, I mean, it's really just taken our underground utility models and elevated it to the next level.
No pun intended, I'm sure.
Yeah,
All right. Thank you, Aaron. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.